it was needed. I think, looking back at it now, I needed to experience that to realize, and learn some lessons.
Yeah.
But
let's talk about that fight.
So that was my pro debut.
Okay, the pro debut.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I went 6-0 as an amateur. Never lost a round. Never even got cut or hit really.
Mm-hmm.
And then my pro debut, I agreed to go up a little bit in weight, and I fight a girl that's been a professional fighter for longer than I've even been fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And she had about 6 inches of reach on me. So the game plan was get her to the ground and wrestle her, right? At that point in time, I was more of a grappler. And the first minute of the very first round, she lands a left hook perfectly on the bridge of my nose. And as soon as it lands, I feel and hear the crunch. I knew that it was broken.
Mm-hmm.
And
pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. I've been on the flex since flex zone.
Welcome to another edition of Coach JT 24/7. Today I have Liv Bierley in the building. Did I say your name right?
You did. Actually, you're probably one of the first people that ever said it right the first time.
Yeah. You want to know, I wanted to say Liv Beverly the whole time.
I feel get Burley a lot, or Light Yearly.
Yeah. So I'm glad I got it right. So Liv Bierley, are you in the UFC or fighting for the UFC contract?
So I would like to say that I'm a prospect, right?
Okay.
I'm on the radar. I just need a few more wins at the regional level.
Okay.
But, I believe words have power. So by the end of this year, I will be a UFC fighter.
Hey, there we go. We're speaking that into existence, but we're also putting some action behind it. So there's a lot about the fight world I don't know behind the scenes. Like I said, I didn't even know if he was in my mind, you in the UFC already. So we already there,
Hey, yeah.
So, but talk to me about it. Like when you were a kid, were you feisty or you fight? What was childhood like for you?
I've always been a tomboy. I've always gravitated towards, adventurous activities or slightly dangerous activities. There's this picture of me when I was 3 years old, and I was, the door frames are wide enough for you to put your arms and legs. And I crawled my way up to the top, and I'm 3 years old or something in a little pamper.
Yeah.
I'm with my head touching the ceiling. Mm-hmm. So I probably, gave my mom several heart attacks growing up, and it was, I say now that it was to prepare her for what I do now.
Okay.
But yeah, I would climb trees. I think I've gone cow tipping and grabbed electric fences and all kinds of crazy
Where'd you grow
stuff.
up at?
I grew up in a small town in Kentucky, so
okay. That's where that accent comes from. Okay,
slightly. It's still Southern, but it's a slightly different Southern accent.
Yeah. I hear it sometimes when you get deep into these conversations and everything. So I love it though. And then, so did you play sports or anything?
Yeah, that was my entire childhood. I think the base of my athletic career was from gymnastics.
Okay.
So my mom knew at an early age that she was going to have to do something with all this energy that I had. And so I think I was almost 3, and she put me in some kind of gymnastics, dance, combination class. And I loved the gymnastics part of it. I didn't necessarily like the dance part of it as much. But I went on to do that till about 16 years old.
Okay.
So that was kind of the most consistent in the base of everything that I did. But I did play basketball in high school, went on to play basketball in college.
Okay.
And then I also did track throughout all of high school. I did not do it in college.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a plot twist. My senior year, I tried out for the cheerleading squad.
Wow. Okay. Plot twist.
Yeah. I ran out of basketball eligibility, and I wanted to get some scholarship money. And I was living slightly off campus, but my neighbors,
gymnastic background.
Yeah. The gymnastics background, so the tumbling and the hard part of cheerleading I already had down. And my neighbors were girls in the cheer team, and they were super cool, super fun. They invited me, and I was like, you know what, I'll try it. Okay, if it helps me graduate debt free, I'll do it. Mm-hmm. And I ended up making the team, and I actually went on to cheer on the national team.
Wow.
But it was not my favorite. It was not probably the best one that I did, but I did do it. So there's proof out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So fighting, all right, before we get into the professional stuff, have you ever been in a fight before any of all this?
I've never been in an actual fight, no, but I've had a couple close calls.
Okay. a couple close calls. All right. So then what possessed you to fight?
I think originally there was a couple different situations, one in college and then one more recently where I was put in a position where I didn't feel safe or comfortable. And for me, feeling like a victim was, I never wanted to feel that way again. And I swore to myself the second time that I was put in a position to where something could have gone very bad and I could have been in an unsafe situation, that I would never let, somebody make me feel that way again. And that I was going to take as much control as I could of the situation and make sure that I at least had self-defense skills so that if something bad were to happen, I had a fighting chance.
Right.
So it really did start as self-defense. And then it kind of progressed. The competitive side of things took over. But originally I had never thought I was going to be fighting in cages and, getting paid to do it. So it just kind of unfolded that way.
So walk us through it. You had this event happen. Did you go into, you were like, I need a self-defense class or something, So was that class, is that what it was, self-defense class?
No, so I was living in Chicago at the time, and it was during the pandemic. So it was in 2020. Okay. And I was at a Walmart late at night, and I intentionally would go late at night because I don't know what it was like down here in Texas, but up in Chicago, I think only 50 to 100 people were allowed in at Walmart at a time. So I'd always wait till like the end of the night, and that way I didn't have to stay in a line. And so I just noticed like there was this guy following me the whole time. And, long story short, like he followed me out to my car. And it was just like this, I got very lucky that things did not turn worse than they could have. And I just remember sitting there in my car and like I was gripping my steering wheel, like crying, terrified. And then eventually the fear turned into like anger of like, how dare someone make me feel that way? Like I should be able to go to the grocery store and not be worried about being abducted, right?
Yeah.
And so I had a buddy, his name was Rocco, and he was someone that I met through fitness because we used to work together, but he was training for an MMA fight.
Okay.
And so I hit him up and he's like, you know what, I'll teach you some of the stuff I know. Now he was still pretty new, but he knew more than I did. And so he would bring his mitts and I bought some, cheap gloves online, and oh gosh, those videos are terrible looking back at it. It's fun. It's actually kind of comical now, and I had fun doing it. It's like I was very strong from all the years of lifting, but I didn't really know how to throw a punch.
Right.
But whenever there's just something like, as soon as my fist started making contact with those mitts, I was like, this is fun. And he hyped me up. And so, I kept doing it. I kept showing up. And then eventually he introduced me to his coach, who he was working with, who was a more experienced MMA fighter. And eventually that coach said, hey, you need to probably swing to the gym. Like, you're at a point where I can't really teach you much more. We've got some girls that actually fight. And you can kind of see how you size up. So they invited me to Midwest Training Center, which is a gym up in Schaumburg, Illinois, near Chicago. And I showed up on a Saturday, which just conveniently happened to be their sparring days. So I go from like no real formal training to, all right, we're punching and kicking each other for real. And I mean, I thought I was holding my own. I've got decent athleticism, but the first time that I got like hit in the face and like really rocked, it was almost like a jolt, like, like jumping in a cold pool, and instead of being upset or mad or scared or hurt, it was like that fight response kicked in. It wasn't a flight response. It was like, oh, she hit me, I'm going to get her back. And right then and there, I just I knew that it was for me. It was the weirdest thing because I never intended on ever fighting until I really got hit in the face. And I was like, I want to do this. This is fun, So maybe I'm crazy. I don't know.
No, I love that because you went from someone just following you around, maybe didn't do anything to you, but they just followed you around, to like you feeling so small and just so messed up behind it, and then to someone actually hitting you and like, oh, let's get it, come on. So I know that feeling. I don't remember the first time I got hit, but I was a scrappy kid fighting everybody. So it was just like, if I fought somebody that actually knew how to fight, I'm like, ooh, okay, I gotta actually figure something out right here, So right. I know the feeling and everything. And so you got into so you're there with them. When did you start that when did you get to the point where you felt like, man, I can probably compete, like really doing this and taking it to the next level?
So I know I joined, I signed up in March of 2021.
Okay.
I started doing the one-on-one lessons around October of 2020. And then I joined the gym officially in March. I made my amateur debut in August.
Dang.
So it was very, very quick, but I am the type of person where, like, when I commit, I fully commit, and it wasn't like, oh, I'm just gonna casually be here occasionally. I was there every day, I was there every single day and taking multiple classes. My body was definitely not prepared for it when I first started. Most days it felt like I got into a car wreck the day before.
Fight training is a different kind of training, man.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And granted, like, my muscles were prepared for, like, lifting weights and working out, but nobody's body's prepared for getting punched and kicked and slammed on the ground. And so it definitely was something that I kind of had to, like, that was probably the hardest part at first. But I knew that I wanted to get some experience in prior to being in the cage. So I did sign up for a couple jiu-jitsu tournaments a month or two prior, just so I could get the feeling of, because everybody talks about when your first fight, you get this crazy adrenaline dump and it zaps your energy. And I've competed a lot, but I've never fought anybody. So I signed up for a few of those, and I ended up winning both tournaments. So that gave me a lot of confidence going into the fight. Now, granted, I didn't have the best skill set when I first made my debut, but I wasn't afraid, and I was pretty tough and strong. And I think the mindset piece when you're early on in your amateur career is kind of like the biggest difference that separates the people who continue on versus the people who don't, because it's really not for everybody. You'd be so surprised at how many girls never like go past 2 or 3 amateur fights. The first time that you get hit or hurt or really cut, it's kind of hard to wake up that next day and decide to keep doing it. So but yeah, for me it was a really quick turnaround, and I think that the background that I had in gymnastics allowed me to accelerate at a fast pace.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like you kind of like was one sport after the other, but this is the extreme for sure. Talk to me about that first fight.
There'll never be another fight like that first one. So my first fight was in, the Railcat Stadium in Indiana.
Okay.
And so it was outdoors, basically a baseball stadium.
What year was this one?
2021. 2021.
Okay.
And so they had this cage, like, kind of where the pitcher would be in a baseball stadium. And so you come out the dugout. And so it's like this is grungy, but the weather was perfect. I couldn't have asked for a better debut. And all my friends and coworkers and family were there. It's crazy because I had 20 of my employees or more that report to me there. So in the back of my mind, I'm kind of like, okay, like, I can't let my employees see me get lucky. So it added a little extra element. And it was all kind of like this new thing that I just sprung upon my parents too. So I knew that, like, I needed to prove a point, because it was very quick and a lot of people didn't think that I was ready to do it. But my amateur debut, I walk out and this girl is probably 5'11". She's way taller than me. I made my debut at a heavier weight class because I didn't understand how to cut weight as much as I do now.
Yeah.
And all I remember is the ref was like, all right, touch gloves if you want to touch gloves. And me being all night, I'm like, all right, let's touch gloves. And she just starts swinging and she's marching me down. And I'm just like getting hit, like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh shoot, this is real. This is really happening.
Yeah.
And yes, the first 5 seconds probably looked really bad, but then I took her to the ground. And from then I kind of dominated the rest of the fight. Second round, I caught her with a big overhand right. And once she once one of my punches connected, I think it changed her demeanor because I don't think she'd ever been hit that hard.
Yeah.
And so she starts backing up and kind of she was more defensive.
Give you some respect.
And then, I hit her with another big overhand and she drops to the ground. I just jump on top of her and I'm hammer fisting, and then the ref comes over and like pulls me off. And this like crazy adrenaline dump the adrenaline hit me then, right? It didn't hit me when the fight started, but it hit me then. And, I turn into this other character. I start running around, jumping around, doing crazy things, but like, I don't know, that I could not sleep that night, and granted, I don't drink much, but afterwards, I can't tell you probably how many shots of alcohol that I took. And I swear I wasn't getting drunk. Yeah. The adrenaline that I had and the high from that fight, and like, it honestly is better than any drug that I could ever imagine.
Yeah.
Because it's like that you feel like a superhuman.
Yeah.
And all of your senses are heightened. Like when you're in there, there's a lot of chance of getting hurt, you know? So like, you really feel alive in that moment. Like, it's life or death in that moment is what it feels like.
Yeah.
And so, like, to me, I think that was like, from that very first fight, there was no turning back. There was nothing you could do to convince me to not do it again and again and again and again, because it made me like, it woke me up, you know? And that's the first time in my life that I like truly felt alive. You know, you could, like, I was in touch with my heartbeat and my breathing, and like, I could relive this moment.
Yeah.
And so that night, I just lay there in bed, and I'm awake the entire night, laying in bed, just replaying it in my dream. And then my alarm goes off in the morning. I hadn't even closed my eyes. I get up and I'm like ready to keep going. And it was the craziest experience. Not all the fights are like that one, but that first one was, there's not another one like that one.
That's awesome. So how many fights you have altogether under your belt?
8.
Okay. All right. So we're not going to talk about each and every one, but there was, what's your record right now?
So I've only lost one.
Okay.
That one was a split decision loss, which was, it was needed. I think, you know, looking back at it now, I needed to experience that to realize, you know, and learn some lessons.
Yeah.
But,
let's talk about that fight.
So that was my pro debut.
Okay. The pro debut.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I went 6-0 as an amateur, never lost a round, never even got like cut or hit really. And then my pro debut, I agree to go up a little bit in weight, and I fight a girl that's been a professional fighter for longer than I've even been fighting. And she had about 6 inches of reach on me. So the game plan was get her to the ground and wrestle her, right? At that point in time, I was more of a grappler. And the first minute of the very first round, she lands a left hook perfectly on the bridge of my nose. And as soon as it lands, I feel and hear the crunch. I knew that it was broken. And it took a second for it to start bleeding. But I bled for 14 minutes straight, like just profusely. And the pictures, it's all over my hair. It just covered the canvas. And that also happened to be the very first fight that my mom came to in person.
Oh, Mom.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was on Mother's Day too. So I'm just
Mom.
like, and I promised her that I was going to finish it quick and not get touched. Because my whole amateur career, it was like, I don't want to say easy, but it was kind of easy,
that
you know?
first hit though was welcome to the pros.
It was like, all right, this ain't the amateurs no more.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot about myself in that moment, because it's easy to fight and love fighting when it's going well for you. Well, things are not going well for me. You know, it sucks to get caught early in a fight. It's 15 minutes so, you know, and looking back at it, I realized that in that moment I abandoned the game plan, and it got emotional for me. You know, when she caught me, it was not, okay, let me win this fight and stick to strategy. It was, let me get her back and show her, oh, she broke my nose, well, I'm going to break her face. I'm going to knock her out, you know? And I lost because I got stubborn and I got emotional with it. And it was the loss of that one fight hurt worse than all the victories of all the other ones felt good. You know, I hated losing so much, but it didn't at all waver any feelings that I had about the sport itself. There was never a moment where I was like, I'm not doing this again. As soon as I got out of the cage, it was like, how long before I can do another one?
Yeah.
And so the other thing that I learned is that I'm able to brawl, you know, 15 minutes when things aren't going my way.
Yeah.
That first round, I clearly lost. All 3 judges said that she won, because the way that it's scored is there's 3 different judges, and they sit not anywhere near each other, 3 different sides of the cage, and each round they put in who they think won each round.
Right.
So all 3 judges gave her the first round. All 3 judges gave me the third round.
Yeah.
2 judges gave her the second. 1 judge gave me the second. So it was like
3 rounds.
It was only 3 rounds because it wasn't a title fight.
I remember watching it, and I was like, if that would have won another round.
If it would have gone another minute. I mean, because I think that I won the second round. Yes. And I took it to the ground, and the way that round ended is I was on top of her, like I was full mount, just punching her in the face, and she was pretty helpless. But I should have wrestled her in the second round, you know?
Right.
And I just, you know, I got stuck in, you know, proving a point, being competitive, being emotional, whatever you want to call it. But I learned that, you know, I learned a valuable lesson that day.
Yeah.
You can't lose the war trying to win the battle. So.
Right. Yeah. Stick to the game plan, no matter how hard you get hit in the face.
Yeah. Oh, and my coaches, like, I've always done a great job listening to them, and they just think I'm a good listener, but really it's like, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Right. So I just had to listen to them.
Yeah.
But that was the first time they're like, you didn't listen. And it sucked because I felt like I made them look bad in that moment too.
You want to know what I think about? I think about Mr. Miyagi, like, don't get emotional, like he's, but it's a real thing, especially when even in life, sometimes shit happens, but you got to stick to that game plan. We get punched in the face all the time in life.
Yeah.
But it's like, if we get emotional and everything, that's when everything crumbles with it,
Right.
So, and that was a valuable lesson to learn in the physical sense right there. I really like it.
Definitely was.
Yeah.
Definitely was.
Listen, so after that, how long did it take you to get to the next fight?
So when you break something, because afterwards the doctor's like, yeah, you broke it. It's a mandatory 30-day no contact suspension. And I had to get cleared by an ENT doctor before I could, fight again. So that was May 12th is when I broke my nose. I got cleared June 12th and signed a contract to fight July 12th. I was ready to, because I was just, the way I saw it is I wanted to get back out there sooner rather than later.
Right.
I didn't want to let it fester. I knew that wasn't the fighter that I was. I didn't want to let that one thing define.
You don't want to wallow in the pain of the loss and everything. You need a victory.
I need it, and I was hungry for it. It made winning, like, I don't know, it when you've lost one, like, 'cause when you're used to winning, when you lose that first one, it kind of establishes that motivation to win again.
You want to redeem yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I did, so I was on that card, but then I had girls backing out, right and left, right and left, right and left. And so I didn't end up getting to fight again until September 22nd, 2 days after my birthday, and gave myself the best birthday gift ever on that one. So I got the full redemption that I wanted in that second fight.
That was a first round knockout, right?
First round knockout. And it wasn't I punch her, she falls, I keep punching her. It was, I punch her and she falls asleep and it's done. Like, she was out.
Yeah.
And that to me was like the coolest. I don't know. Like that to me, I watched that video and I'm like, dang, that's me. Like, this did that,
So let's talk about that fight, because what were the expectations going into it?
I was not supposed to win that fight. If you ask a bunch of people from the combat community, obviously I think a lot of people, when you lose, they, you look at UFC fighters now, like Adesanya just lost again today. Sometimes people who are used to having success and being dominant and they face that first adversity, not a lot of people come back from that. But in my mind, like, I didn't care. It didn't matter to me who was on the other end of the cage. A lot of fighters are very picky and choosy, and they want to pad their record and they want to have easy wins. But I want to make it to the UFC and I want to be the best. So I need to fight tough people now. And that's like, if I believe in my heart that I'm the best, then it doesn't matter who the other person is. So we found this girl who was a Muay Thai champion. She kind of had a Muay Thai background, trains out in California. And I guess nobody wanted to fight her either, right? And so this girl had a huge following on social media. I was getting messages in my DMs about, don't stand with her. You better hope you take it to the ground. She's going to knock you out. Mostly just like, don't stand with her, right? And so like the whole camp, like this, just chirping. And the game plan you would have thought would have been like, get her to the ground, because she's a striker, right? And usually you want to play to their weaknesses. But there was just something in the back of my mind, and my coach believed in me, I believed in me. And so we were working on some things, and we were banking on getting, a striking finish. If we needed to, we were going to grapple, but I think it was that redemption of proving the point that I can stand, and I can, that I just got caught on that last one. And so there was a lot leading up to that fight. She had to back out of our first matchup in August. And then we agreed to fight her again in September, which was pretty frustrating to have to go through that whole process. But just as soon as we got to the event and we faced off, like, I could just see it in her eyes. Like, she didn't want to be there, or at least I felt like she didn't want to be there. And I just felt really confident. I felt more than anything calm. Because to me, like, the worst thing that could happen is you lose. And I'd already experienced that. So the pressure was off. The hype of my amateur career and the success I had then, like, all that was kind of off the table, and it was just me and her in the cage. And so when they finally locked the doors and I was standing there, there was just something in her demeanor that I was like, she looked too calm, but it looked forced. So I figured that she was gonna, throw a lot of kicks. That was what she was known for. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, if I can just time one of these kicks. I knew I was going to have to eat it, but when you throw a kick, that's when you're exposed. And so she was throwing some low kicks, and I was just trying to get the timing down the first probably 90 seconds of it. And then when she went to throw it again, I stepped in, I ate it, and it hurt. Like I felt that one. And that right hand connected, and as soon as it made contact, and I hit her perfectly with the two knuckles that you're supposed to hit with. I knew that if that hit anywhere not on her shoulder, that she was out. And like that, you watch the video in slow-mo, as soon as it connected, like she's asleep on the way down, hits the ground, and is in this very stiff, her legs are elevated, like rigid position. And it just, I don't know, it was the redemption that I needed, and not that I needed the confidence, but it always feels good to execute the plan. And that exact same combination was something that exactly 7 days prior, my coach and I were prepping with with the pads and with the dummy on the ground. So it just kind of like goes to show that the things that you do in practice do carry over, and that muscle memory is there. But the most important thing is like the confidence piece. She was the more talented or skilled, experienced fighter, but I think the confidence that I had going in the cage, that's what allowed me to walk out with the win. Yeah,
she might have felt it or something. I don't know. Everybody has a day, I guess. I don't know, but you know. Man, it's interesting you say that, and you felt that, and it's kind of, to me, I see it as like you already felt the win was happening. You know, when she was in there.
Knew there was no other way. I knew that it was going to be my hand getting raised. You know, I thought it was going to be from a knockout, but I knew that it was going to be my hand. Like I wanted it, and the amount of work that I put into leading up to that camp. Like I always came in prepared, but the preparation, and you can probably ask my coach, he probably hated me every day. What's your schedule like? I got to eat like one-on-one, and every day I was trying to get as much work as I possibly could in, because I knew that worst case scenario, if I didn't win, it wasn't for lack of preparation. You know, I controlled all of my controllables, and that's all you can do.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I love that. That's all you can do is control your controllables. So going forward, right? Got another fight coming up.
Yeah.
All right. When's the next fight?
It is 3 weeks out, so February 21st. It'll be a Friday, and it's here in San Antonio.
Yeah. You know, my birthday is February 20th, so you better get me, you know, a win. And then, so Friday, I'm going to make sure I go to that fight. I'm going to get me a ticket today and go to that fight. So it's here in San Antonio. Where's it going to be at?
The Boeing Center at Techport.
Oh, I've been wanting to go to the Boeing Center for a hot minute.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, it's so nice.
Yeah, okay. So, you know, we'll talk a little bit about your expectations, and you tell me if I need to put this in, post this before or after the fight, or day of, or whatever, you know, whatever comes out here. But, you know, mindset going into this fight or any fight, you know, where are we at today?
So I think, and this is just every fighter's probably got their own process. I try not to get too hung up in who I'm fighting.
Okay.
And for me, the strategy is never, like, I really don't spend time, like, analyzing them, breaking them down, like, because it's me, right? Like, I got to worry about my strengths, and like making sure that I'm just the most prepared for, because anything can happen in the cage. And I think sometimes if you go into it with specific expectations and things don't go as planned, it can mentally kind of it can kind of get you off your rhythm a little bit. I do know that she is more of a striker. You know, she's got some kickboxing experience. So I would imagine she's going to be similar to like the last girl that I fought. But I've been, man, it's crazy to think how much better I've gotten from the last fight to now. Because I've had time to just drill and take practice and technique, and I've cross trained and traveled, and so, you know, the expectation is to finish it. Like, I refuse to let another judge determine whether or not I win or lose a fight.
Yeah, that's the best way right there, is to just listen, I'm going to determine it right here.
Yes. Your opinion doesn't matter. No offense, right? Because I'm going to finish the fight. So how it happens, you know, knockouts are awesome, right? They're so fun. And as cool as a head kick knockout would be, I don't know, there's just something about when your fist is strong enough to like put someone to sleep. Like that to me is that's sick, right? So that's like my favorite. If I had to choose a way to knock someone out, is just straight up with my fist, you know, because a lot of girls don't have that kind of power. So that for me is always like a little flex, right? But as long as I finish it within the first couple rounds, that's the plan. Like I the goal is to get in there, get a finish, because I think that those are the most convincing type of wins. And my goal is to get to the UFC. And the UFC, they don't necessarily want to see people that kind of, you know, score more points. They want to see highlight reels, right? And I think that's the type of explosive fighter that I am. And the aggressive, you know, headstrong fighter that I am is I like to finish it, you know, high risk, high reward. So if I have to do a few things that maybe put me in a position, I'm going to do it because I like my chances of finishing.
I love everything you said right there, especially the part where it's once you're in the UFC, they want to see these highlight reels, and you got to give them some highlights now. So when you're in there, they can be like, oh man, this girl's coming in like she might be the truth, you know? So I love that, man. The status goes up and everything, man. So who are your biggest supporters when it's come to your professional career and your journey getting to the UFC? Like, you know, is there anybody you want to like really thank for through all of this, or any, you know, shout outs you want to give?
Well, I feel very, very blessed. Obviously, first and foremost, I want to give God credit. Obviously, you know, I put in the work and I show up, but he's given me the ability, an able body, you know, a strong mind, and he's blessed me with so many people that have been supportive along the way. Obviously, on a day-to-day basis, my coaches and my teammates. Right. And my teammates are kind of like my fight family. But my coaches, they put in a lot of time and effort with, you know, making sure that the things that I need to make adjustments with, and they're working with me like in practice, outside of practice, sending me videos, like putting in time to make sure that my strength training's on point. So I don't know how many hours goes into it on their part, but I definitely want to make sure that, you know, Coach P, Coach Ray, that they get their credit for getting me to this point. Also my teammates, you know, like you can't train by yourself. You need bodies, and camp's not always easy, right? Like it's one thing to be going through camp and getting hit hard and kicked when you have a fight coming up, but when you're just doing it to help somebody else get ready for a fight, like that to me,
you can beat me up and I beat you up and we, you know, whatever. Like, that's hard, bro.
It is. So I have a lot of respect for them. One of my teammates is actually going to be fighting on the same card, Alex Carlson.
Okay.
She is. It'll be
a title. You always boxing with?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So Alex will be fighting. She's actually going to be defending her belt. It's for the amateur strawweight. Okay. Awesome. So she won it back in July, the card that I was supposed to be on, and now she's defending it this month now, actually. That's amazing. Yeah. So definitely her, and then have a lot of local sponsors. As hard as you train, you have to recover. Right. So, you know, I have a lot of local places that have a juice, Famous Amos Juice Company that does a lot of my like nutrition and juice cleanses and things like that. Whenever I'm getting into fight camp, I go to a total body regeneration, which is like a cryo compression, red light therapy. And then I just recently started working with the Modern Movement, which is a chiropractor. They do dry needling, a lot like shockwave therapy, laser therapy. Because it's like that is equally as important as the practicing. Oh,
100%. Probably more important.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say so.
Because if you think about, you know, those video games where it's like your XP goes down. Yeah. Well, I want to go into the fight fully charged. Like you don't want to go in there already beaten and battered. So. Yeah. And the more and more, you know, as we learn about our bodies as humans and everything, you look at these pro level athletes, they're lasting longer in their careers because they're taking more care of themselves outside of their training with the recovery and everything, you know. Right. It's Ron James right now, you know. And he's my age, you know, still out there with great numbers, you know. So that's important that you do take care of your recovery and everything like that. And in the long run, it's going to help you too, you know. So you're not just all, you know. Oh, for sure. And I've gone into fights pretty banged up, so that it makes a big difference. It really does. So I just feel overall I've been very blessed with a good team of people, and it might just be me in the cage, but I always say it takes a village, and it really does. And I've had a lot of support from the community. San Antonio it's my adopted home. Right. You know, I know I wasn't born here, but it feels like home to me now. Yeah. So, and I'm proud to be here.
Yeah, one time for San Antonio, claiming San Antonio. We got Kentucky over here, though. But hey, man, you're doing a lot for the city in that sense. You know, I really love that. And I just want to give those full names of those two coaches. So you got Pete Spratt, Pete Spratt. And Ray, I just call him Ray. I don't know. Ray.
You know, his first and last name kind of is like Ray.
Yeah, it is. So Ray. So Yeah, those are great guys. I've never met Pete, but I worked alongside Ray, and that dude he's such a good trainer, man, and on every level. So you're definitely surrounded by some great people for sure. Got some other questions to ask. So growing up, or even present day, you watch a lot of fighting or anything like UFC stuff?
I do now.
Okay. Before then, you didn't?
No. So my high school did not get wrestling until like 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
So I graduated from Mason County High School,
Yeah.
and they just recently got like a program together. I think 2021. And it's cool because they've asked me to come out and work with them, and that to me is amazing. Like I can't wait to get to a position where I can give back to the community and start doing more women's self-defense courses and seminars and things like that, because the community's given so much to me, you know. But yeah, I never even knew what like MMA was until I was in college. So in 2014, I was playing basketball, and it was my freshman year of college. And some of the football players on campus just started referring to me as like Rousey, started calling me Rowdy Rousey, right?
Hey,
and I'm like,
go.
what is that, right? Yep. Who is that? And so Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor were probably the two names, like I knew about them before I knew about the UFC.
Okay.
And
around that time, that's what it was, though.
Yeah, it was them. Yeah, it was them, and she really paved the way.
She paved the way for a lot of women when the female sport of MMA like got interesting when she started on her reign,
because she was strong, but she was beautiful, and she was tough, and she wasn't afraid to talk smack and back it up, and she was very dominant. And so and ironically enough, we're in the same weight class, we're the same height, similar build, so it's like, I saw that, and that to me was like, I didn't even know girls did that. Like, that's so cool. Yeah. And so I think that was like kind of around the time when I first became aware of what it was. But I really didn't start getting into it and watching it until probably 2020 when COVID and the pandemic happened. We would all go and like watch the fights or meet up at each other's houses and like kind of watch it on TV. But I was still pretty new to all of it. I knew obviously of McGregor, and I knew of Rousey, but I didn't really know any of the other names or any of the history of the sport. But for me, watching it, and this before I even started training, I loved watching it because in my mind, like, it's the ultimate level of physical competition. Like I've done all kinds of sports, but this to me was like that extreme, physical chess, I guess, if you want to call it something. So that was when I really started kind of getting into it, and you're not working, you can't really go out and do things, so that's when that was really the only sport that was still going on. The Fight Island, that was a genius idea, because I used to watch football and basketball, but then it wasn't as fun to watch. People would have to sit out because of COVID, and then and it was just a hot mess. So I kind of quit watching other sports around that time and really started picking up and following UFC at that point.
That's really cool. So up to present day, like, who is your favorite female MMA fighter?
That's hard. I mean, Ronda, I think, was the first, and then I have a lot of respect for her and what she did, and like you said, paving the way. I think in terms of Amanda Nunes I don't know if there'll ever be another person like her. She was probably the most dominant female across 2 different weight classes. And she kind of just handled business, didn't really say a whole lot, would show up, just do her thing. It wasn't like she was there for the glory or the fame. Like, this girl just loved to fight. And I wouldn't be shocked if she doesn't come back out of retirement. So I really liked her, and then Chris Cyborg. Just the decorations that she has, and different weight classes and different like boxing and MMA. So those are probably 2 of my favorite, like, I guess, women to watch in the sport. I hope that Nunes comes back, because I would love a chance to fight Nunes. I'd love a chance.
Be careful what you ask for, boy. She
better be careful. But you have to have that mindset. Thinking highly of yourself doesn't mean that you think less of others.
But no one wants to go and fight thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna lose." Like, then don't do that.
No, you can't.
There's no point you being there.
If there's any doubt in your mind, you've already lost.
So, but it's funny you say them too, man, because I remember seeing when they fought, and I thought Cyborg was destroying everybody, and Nunes was like, nope, she clapped her up quick.
She did.
She was like, man, get her out of it. And I think before that, she chopped down Ronda Rousey.
Yep.
You know,
Ragdolled her.
Yeah.
That was honestly really hard to watch. That probably was what ended. Ronda was never the same.
Yeah, Ronda was never the same after that. You know, she had lost a couple fights, but then, you know, that one there was like, no, these women are hitting different now. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Which Bullet Montina, she's incredible too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, not just in the cage, like this, she can speak multiple languages, and she's like, so she might be like the scariest person of all of them, you know, just of her ability to be, she's probably an assassin. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if she's some kind of spy or something, but I'd say probably those three.
Yeah, I remember I ate my words big time. So many years ago, I had a podcast and I was talking about sports and talking about MMA specifically and UFC. And I was just like, you know, the women, like, I was like, you know, the women's like, it's just not as interesting, you know, and I ate those words. I said it in public, you know, but this is an apology right here.
Right, okay.
So, because no one hopped on me, and plus no one watched that podcast or anything. But, like, I ate my words quickly because it was, like, shortly after that, that's when, like, Ronda Rousey and all these other women started coming up. And then you look at the women in there today, like, they all bad in there killing it, man. Like, everybody, like, it's very interesting to watch now because it's, like, it's faster. Like, I feel like it's quicker, you know, they fight at a quicker pace. Like, you know, it's funny
that you bring that up too, because like, and I feel like I'm allowed to say this, but I as much as I hate to admit, a lot of women's sports maybe aren't as exciting. Mm-hmm. You know, women don't dunk in basketball as often, or, you know, but in MMA and in combat sports, because of the weight classes, like it levels the playing field so much that I think that a lot of times women fights, if not equal or definitely more exciting.
More exciting now.
Women have a higher pain tolerance, right? You can look that up. That's not an opinion. That you can look that up. We're generally more mobile, right? So we have more flexibility, more range of motion. Yeah. And in a sport where you're in these weird contorted positions, you know, there's positions that guys might tap because their mobility isn't there, where women are they're just cranking up their arm and keep going.
Twist it off if you want to, so you'll keep going.
Exactly. So I do think that some of the women's some of the best fights ever are women's fights.
Yeah,
you know?
No, I agree 100%. Like I said, I ate my words with that and everything, and I'm like going back looking for that video to delete it. You know, so
no, let me find it.
Yeah, but you know, women's sports across the board though have gotten more exciting over the years and everything as the skill develops. Just like any new sport, it's got to develop into what it's going to be. Even when basketball, all that first came out, it wasn't that exciting, but you had a couple players that changed the game, and then they just raised the standard, and the standard keeps raising. So it's a lot higher now. We got Liv about to go in there, about to raise it to another standard. You know, we taking it to the next level for sure, man. So if you did have, you know, going back to the beginning of your story there and how you got started, do you have any advice for any women that might be scared, you know, when it comes to like physical abuse or anything like that for men?
Well, I mean, I think the first piece of advice is leave, you know, and obviously that's easier said than done, right? I think sometimes the hardest situations to leave are the worst ones that you're in. And not that I've ever been in a physically abusive relationship, but I've definitely been in verbally and, you know, emotionally kind of toxic places. And those are the hardest ones to walk away. You know, like it feels as though you're in the center of a tornado and you know that this is a tornado that's bad, but you can't really see on the other side. So you're just sucked in it. Yeah. But I think as far as advice goes, reach out and talk to people, right? There are so many people that will be a resource and a you know, a support system for you. Secondly, you have control over you. You can't change other people. Other people have to want to change, right? So when it comes, but you have to be the change first, and what you're not changing, you're choosing, right? Nobody is stuck in a situation. You're just allowing that situation to continue. And so when it comes to like things that I think a lot of it is just the confidence, and MMA has given me so much confidence. I didn't always used to, you know, have the strong sense of identity that I have now. But when you go through tough things and when you feel and you get through it, I think a part of you grows and the confidence increases, and from there it's like the possibilities are endless. There are so many gyms that have women's only, you know, self-defense or jiu-jitsu There's a lot of women's only classes. And when you go to gyms, every gym that I've ever gone to has been very welcoming. Right. And so regardless of whether you have been doing this for 20 years and are a black belt with all these accolades, or whether or not you've never done anything physical in your life, you would be so surprised at how many times when a new person shows up, everybody like jumps in to help out. And it's almost like part of the culture of, we all started somewhere. Right. And it's not, okay, you're not good, we're all going to avoid you or whatever. It's, hey, let's bring that person in and make them part of the family. I think sometimes there, people that are in bad situations or bad relationships, they feel very alone and isolated, and they're made to feel that way so they don't leave. But there's a world of people out there, that would be more than happy to take time out of their day, out of their week, and help you learn or help you, get through whatever it is that you're going through. Mm-hmm. So that would probably be like maybe some advice that I would say is, just give it a shot. Reach out, ask. If you're in San Antonio, message me, hit me up. I will personally work with you one-on-one until the point where you feel comfortable, because that's what this is all about. It's, I believe that you rise by lifting others. And, at the end of the day, it doesn't take one person succeeding to, more than one person can succeed, right? Yeah. It's not a matter of, all right, if she wins, I can't. We can all have success. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be a competition, right?
Just as long as there's intentions for growth for everybody, then we're getting there.
We're getting there.
Yeah, I love that, man. So we can end it on that note. If people do want to reach out to you, how can they get a hold of you?
Probably the easiest way is on Instagram. I just recently changed my IG handle to Liv with 2 V's Yum Yum. So my fight nickname is Yum Yum.
Yum Yum.
So Liv Yum Yum on IG. That's probably the easiest way. Or you can stop by RPBJJ, my gym off of 1604 in the Ridge, and just come through.
What if they want to book you for something? Is it the same thing, or is it?
So either my email or probably Instagram. A lot of people reach out via Instagram. That's kind of like where I get most of my.
Go to Instagram, just hit her up.
Yeah, go to. You can go from there.
Yeah, already, man. I appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
Yeah.